What's the topic of your research basically done here in Armenia? What's the goal of your visit, and a bit about your impressions of working here?
I came to Armenia for a rather short research trip, approximately a bit more than a week, and I'm working on a paper that tries to look into the Russian-Armenian bilateral relationship, especially throughout the Pashinyan's being in the center of politics since last year, which is very good because today exactly marks the anniversary of when Serge Sargsyan resigned. So I tried to evaluate whether those claims that we could have read throughout this year, that either the Russian orbit is inescapable for Armenia, or that Armenia is making again some kind of U-turn towards the EU, whether this is true or not. So I basically came for collecting decision-maker interviews. I did a couple of interviews before via Skype, and I also did interviews in Moscow, so that seems to be a nice completion of my project, making decision makers interviews as well here.
Have you drawn any conclusions already?
I won't be fast in drawing conclusions yet. I think it's always good to come home, sit down, and think it out, and you know what? Because sometimes impressions are also personal in a way, a little bit, and it's also good to listen to those interviews or just read through to. Not to rush with conclusions. So I think that finding the middle ground is very important in trying to be as much as possible a bit distant from your topic of interest.
How was the atmosphere for research in general in Armenia? Was it positive? I mean, did you manage to make all the interviews and collect all the information you needed?
I found the people very open. I would say even decision makers, because it's not always the case, and it doesn't really matter which country you are in. So generally, people were very, very helpful. Thanks for the Caucasus Institute as well, because it helped me a lot to reach those people I wanted to. I'm very positive, and I'm very thankful for having those interviews, because they are really completing my angle of not only researchers and academics but decision makers, and I think that's a quite important segment.
Okay, and one last question. Is there any raising the interest in the West towards Armenia and essentially this part of the world after the Velvet Revolution, after the change of power?
I do believe that there is, because it was a very positive change and an example set in a way. I also believe that after 1 year you can draw more conclusions because the emotions are a bit gone. You know, it's always, they say you need to judge politicians on what they have done or they did, not what they say. So the interest is definitely there. The positive atmosphere is there. However, I think however, I cannot judge. I mean, I live in Hungary. I cannot say anything in general about the West. That wouldn't be possible. But I think it's more cautious than it was a year ago.